Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back to another week of Popular Images. Today's session is for both the 11 till 12 group and the 12 till 1 group, as I have been double booked for 12 till 1. I'm actually teaching the level 3s, 12 till 2. So this session is for anyone in the 11 till 12 or the 12 till 1 group, but of course anyone is welcome to join any of the sessions now. We have no concerns about the size of the room, so anyone can watch any session. Of course, I'm recording all of the sessions for everyone as well, so you can watch it live or in your own time. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing the lecture or the talking part of the seminar. It'll take about sort of 10, 15, 20 minutes maybe. And then as before, or as last week, the remaining half hour of the seminar time will be independent work that I'm going to ask you to upload before the end of Sunday night. So giving you a full week of opportunity to do that half an hour of work. I'm going to be recording this live session. I'm also going to be making available the web chat feature for the duration of the hour. So I will be here ready to chat with you if you want to. However, I won't be recording that. I'll just be recording and publishing this part of the seminar. If you're watching this at home and, well, fingers crossed you're watching it at home, but if you're watching this at home and you are not watching it live, and therefore you do not have access to the live chat function, then please still feel free to email me anytime and I'll get back to you as soon as I'm back at my computer. Right, so let's get started on today's seminar. So I am going to be first giving some feedback for the journals, so the short paragraphs that I asked you guys to submit as your seminar work last week. Now, you had the option of completing either a short mini analysis on Edvard Munch's The Scream, or submitting your own analysis for a piece of your choosing. So I'm going to give you guys some feedback now. This feedback is also available on Moodle. If you go to this week's seminar and scroll down to feedback from the screen. So thank you to those who took part in the journal entries this week. I really had a great time reading through your ideas. Obviously, I chose The Scream because I really, I think it's a very important piece. I think it's a psychologically very interesting piece. But what I found fantastically intriguing was your own personal responses, because there are a lot of responses that I thought were really quite in-depth. And some things that I hadn't thought of myself. And what's fantastic and what I would really have missed from the seminars is that ability to interact with you guys and hear your thoughts. Of course, one thing that you guys also get from the seminar is being able to hear other people's thoughts. And that's why I thought I'd give you guys some feedback so that you can see what you've done right, what other people have done right, and what you might have done wrong, and what other people might have done wrong, so that you can be sure to avoid that in your essays. So I really enjoyed your responses, and I'm going to select a few to read out now. I'm not going to tell anyone's names. I'm not going to read the whole response, just a few intriguing analyses. So the first is the almost hollow eyeballs might represent the void that is present inside the person. Now, I found that really interesting, the analysis of such a small part of the piece being the eyes. So one of the skills that you could learn from this is to make sure that when you're looking at your pieces for your coursework, not just to look at the sort of larger parts of the image or the more obvious parts of the image, but to also analyse some of the smaller, more intriguing parts. What else do we have? The Scream has no straight lines and shows a chaos of colours and sharp and soft lines. I really enjoyed that as well, and a few of you picked up on that. I've quoted one person directly, but a few of you picked up on that. Now, one of the things that I really enjoyed about that was you weren't just looking at the specific parts of the image, you weren't just talking about things that you could see, like things that the artist had painted, but more so the way that the image had been constructed, which is a really fantastic skill. So one of the things that I'd like you guys to carry on doing, or some of you to start doing, will be rather than just talking about the things that are present in the image, talk about how the image was conducted. Like with our impressionist seminar, we talked about there being very small definite lines and no blurring. Now that's very important for impressionists, whereas expressionists, as we said last week, they try and create their emotions on the page. And so the way they use their brushstrokes is really very important. Now, some of you might be analysing films, some of you might be analysing dances, TV shows, some of you might be analysing in-person art that you've managed to get a video of, so public art. Now that will be fantastic as well. And as I said in our seminar on dance, try to pick out pieces of how it's been constructed. If it's in film, think about the direction, think about the use of colour, think about the use of light. Has darkness been used to create a sombre, intense and foreboding mood? We'll cover a bit of that next week as well when we do my Peaky Blinders lecture. We're going to be having a little look at the way that directors use imagery on the screen to create a sense of foreboding rather than simply just the way that the characters interact with each other as well. So I'll just select one more here. Perhaps Monk decided not to construct it as a self-portrait because he wanted to distance himself from his anxiety, or maybe he wanted it to be gender-neutral being to show that anyone can get anxiety and depression and feel the same way as the character in the image. Now, this is a fantastic psychological interpretation of this image. The Scream is a genderless character, and that can be quite important. Edvard Munch could have been trying to portray it as being unnerving and unnatural, and that's why it was genderless. Or perhaps Edvard Munch was trying to show that anyone can be that person, and so they tried to have few personalizing features in the image as possible, so you can see yourself reflected in that anxiety. That was a really great response there. Thank you to whoever did that. I'm not going to read out your names. So I've also constructed some feedback that you can feed forward for your essay. So this applies not just to the Scream submissions, but to the submissions for both the Scream and the individually selected images. So this doesn't necessarily apply to all submissions. Some of you might already be doing the strengths. Some of you may not have the improvements, may not need to use the improvements that I'm suggesting. But these are the strengths that I'm seeing in general and the improvements that I'm seeing in general. So as the strength, some of your interpretations were truly fantastic. In particular, those of you who explored the artist's history, who analysed the image and dissected how the history and the context can be identified in the way that the image was created. So using the skill of finding out about the history and the context, and the skill of analysing the image and bringing those together. The two independent things are important, but bringing them together is where you're going to see the bigger marks, the sort of top marks. I was really impressed with those of you who managed to include psychological theory, such as Freud and Jung, in your analyses. These skills will really help you to gain top marks in your essay. In the Scream in particular, Freud and Jung can be seen as being very important. There is a lot of psychology in there, in the Scream in particular. And if we look into Monk's history, we can see that maybe his past fears are reflected in his piece, The Scream. So we can really see a lot of Freud in there, with the childhood experiences influencing adult experiences. And we can see Jung in there as well, with there being this archetypal terrified image as well. Now for improvement, remember to also, so some of you explored the artist's history very well. That's a fantastic strength. And some of you, however, looked at the image and discussed the image, but did not talk about the artist's history or the context of image creation, and how this might have informed the piece and influenced the piece. And so that will be something to improve upon. Again, as is a sort of like opposite of the strengths, a good thing to improve on will be to start to relate to psychological constructs. Think about what themes are present in the image. So in Scream, we saw anxiety. So consider what psychological theories are associated with anxiety. What might we be able to tell about the artist's or the character's psyche through analysis of the image? And are there any appropriate theories that might therefore inform our analysis? Now, this is one of the areas that we're going to be looking to give marks for in your assignment. So this is really important for you guys to start to do. If you're not already doing it, then try and make a start in your next couple of in your next submission, perhaps for me with your seminar work, and I'll be able to give you feedback on how you've done with that. This you can feed forward to your essay. If you're already starting to write your essay, then you're making a fantastic start. You've not got a huge amount of time left, so as you know, you've got until May, haven't you? So ignore that. You've got quite a bit of time, and especially with having to be at home quite a lot now, then hopefully you're going to be diving into your work. But if you could just take the information that I'm giving you in response to your seminar work and apply that to your essay, that would be fantastic. Now, what was the last piece? Right, okay, so this is the biggest issue that I'm seeing at the moment. Again, this doesn't apply to all of you, this only applies to some of you. But what I want you guys to try and avoid doing, some of you are confusing your personal response to the image with describing the image. So I'll give you an example. Rather than saying for the Scream, the man is, or the genderless character is clutching the sides of their head and opening their mouth with in a scream, you also need to continue with that this shows Edvard Munch's frustration, terror, mental confusion. You need to pull forward from simply looking at the image, describing the image, and pull forward psychological meaning from that. Try and think about what you would be trying to say. Try and think about what you would be trying to say if you had created that image. Right, so that draws us to the end of feedback from the Scream. And now we're going to be looking at war imagery. Right, so today for the selected image, I have chosen, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek because it's very applicable to what's going on at the moment, but it's about war rationing. So this image, I'll just share my screen with you now. Is it? I think, yeah, there we go. Okay, so here is the image that I'd like you guys to analyze today, if you can, or if you'd like to. I'd also like you guys, or instead, I'd like you guys to analyze a self-selected image if this one doesn't particularly appeal to you. So one of the things that you've been learning about in lecture recently, I believe, is post-war art. Now, I've chosen this as a piece of post-war art for you guys to use your skills that you hopefully learned in that lecture to analyse. Now, this is a piece by an artist called Richard Williams. Now, this piece was not created during the time of the war. This piece was created in 1944, based on the experiences of the war. As last week, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this image because I'd like you guys to explore the history of the image. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I'd like you guys to explore the history of the image and the history that the image is based on, because of course the image was created in 1944, but it's reflective of the whole Second World War time period. So I'd like you guys to start by exploring the history, exploring the history of the artist, perhaps look at other things that the artist has engaged with. The psychology of this artist in particular might not be that relevant. So with Edvard Munch, we saw how his childhood experience and his psychology really influenced his art. And that's because he's an expressionist. And so he was expressing his innermost feelings on the page. However, Richard Williams, or Dick Williams, was an animation artist. And he was employed by people to create images such as this one. So I'm not going to be necessarily or actually, if you guys can find something interesting about Richard Williams' past that informed his creation of these images, then absolutely go for it. But I'm not sure that you'll be able to find that much about it. But as before, I'd like you guys to create a response to this image, including the history at the time. Perhaps even you guys could reflect on how this image might be received today. We're seeing a lot of hoarding at the moment. We're seeing a lot of wartime behaviours amongst civilians. So you could perhaps even see how it was received at the time versus how this might be received now. That might be something interesting to do. And you could even bring in psychological and sociological theories with that. So hopefully that might help you guys to kick off your analysis. But of course, as always, I'd also like you guys to respond yourselves to the image, how you feel about the image. There's not as much online about this image as there was with the screen. That's been done deliberately because I want you guys to now start using your own skills rather than focusing on what other people have said about images. We're hoping to use this last month before your final submission to really hone your skills, and you'll be getting individualised and group feedback every week through your seminar work for me. So, as before, as last week, you have until the end of the day on Sunday to complete this work. You can choose the image that I've selected for you, or you can choose your own image, but I'd like you to still commit to doing the same amount of work. So about half an hour spent on having a look and then just giving a relatively brief response to it. Does not need to have references, does not need to be written scientifically. I'm going to end the recording part of the session now and stop my video and audio. But then what I'm going to do is I'm still going to be available via the live chat at the side of the screen for any of you guys to ask me questions in a live chat format.